The first snow fell early that year, soft as feathers and quiet as a held breath. It covered the small town of Willow Creek before folks were ready, laying a white hush over rooftops, fences, and the narrow dirt road that wound between them. People said it was going to be a hard winter. They said it with the kind of knowing look that came from long memories and tired bones. Elias Carter felt it in his hands before he believed it with his ears. He was a blacksmith by trade, a widower by fate, and a man who had learned to keep his head down and his heart guarded. His forge sat near the edge of town, its fire usually roaring, its hammer ringing like a steady promise. But as the days shortened and the cold deepened, fewer people came. Horses stayed in their barns, wagons stayed put, coins grew scarce. Elias worked anyway. He always did. Habit was a kind of faith. Across the frozen creek lived a boy named Thomas Hale, no more than 10 years old, thin as a sapling and twice as quiet. He and his mother had come to Willow Creek the spring before, carrying little more than grief in a single trunk. The boy's father had died somewhere west, chasing land and a better life that never came. Since then, Thomas had learned how to be careful with words and hope. When the winter settled in for good, it did not knock. It kicked. Snowstorms came one after another, piling high against doors and windows. The creek froze solid. The road vanished. The town became an island of smoke and prayer. Food grew tight, wood grew precious, and sickness, as it often did, followed close behind. It was Thomas's mother who fell ill first. By the time the boy made his way through the snow to Elias's forge, his boots were soaked and his fingers blue. He did not cry. He did not beg. He simply stood there shivering, holding out a small iron trinket, his father's by the look of it. "I was told you might trade," the boy said, his voice steady but small. Elias looked at the trinket, then at the boy. He thought of his own wife, gone these 5 winters now. He thought of nights spent talking to an empty room. Without a word, he pushed a sack of firewood and a loaf of bread across the table. "Take these," he said. "No trade needed." Thomas hesitated, then nodded once. "Thank you, sir." He turned and walked back into the snow. That should have been the end of it, but winter has a way of stretching moments into memories. Elias began leaving small bundles by the Hales' door, wood, food, once even a blanket. He told himself it was nothing, just doing what was right. But each time, he felt something thaw just a little inside him. When the worst storm of the season hit, it came howling in the night, rattling windows and bending trees. The town went dark. By morning, Willow Creek was buried, silent, and cut off from the world. Elias dug his way out and made his rounds, checking on neighbors. When he reached the Hales' house, the door was half buried, the chimney cold. Inside, Thomas sat beside his mother, fear etched deep into his young face. She was breathing, but barely. Elias did not think. He acted. He carried her through the storm to his forge, where the fire still lived. He melted snow for water, boiled what herbs he had, and sat through the long night, feeding the flames and watching over them both. Somewhere between dusk and dawn, the woman's breathing eased. Somewhere between tending the fire and listening to the wind, Elias realized he was no longer alone. The storm passed. Slowly, life returned. The road was cleared. The creek cracked and groaned. People came back into the forge, bringing stories, thanks, and sometimes just company. Thomas's laughter began to echo there too, light and surprising. His mother grew stronger, her smile warmer than any fire. When spring finally arrived, it did not rush. It lingered, as if making sure everyone was ready. One evening, as the last snow melted into the creek, Elias stood outside his forge and watched Thomas skip stones across the water. The boy looked back and smiled, wide and sure. Elias smiled too. That winter had taken much from Willow Creek. comfort, certainty, and sleep. But it had given something back as well. It had reminded a quiet town, and one guarded man, that even in the coldest seasons, kindness could still burn bright enough to change everything.